It is Monday, June the 1st. Happy Pride Month of 2026, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover the daily happenings inside the federal machine. So if you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe. Drop all the comments you want. Every article is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to start with Fox News. New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill speaks out after anti-ICE chaos outside Delaney Hall, which happened all weekend long, of course. She says she refuses to give ICE a pretext to expand operations. Let me be clear, ICE engagement creates an incredibly dangerous situation. Yeah, because it's not like the rioters are not creating any dangerous situation. They're just there, just peacefully, innocently doing nothing. They're completely just 100% provoked by the federal agents. You know, they're doing all the chaos, evidently. But we all know what's really happening. It makes the situation worse, and I refuse to back down in fighting the Trump administration. Okay, so it's all Trump's fault, too, for all the violence. I mean, talk about brain dead. We all know that the people from outside the state have been interfering with the protest and escalating them. Well, yeah, of course, because they're getting paid to do so. In fact, they're probably being bussed in by NGOs and nonprofits and the like. To the people coming from out of state to create chaos and dangerous situations, you should not be here. Well, if they weren't there, not to say that they would have an empty parking lot, but they wouldn't nearly have the size of the crowd that they have out there, because most, if not nearly all of these people, which we already know, they've been doing this shit for years. They're being bussed in, they're being paid to be there, they're getting paid. There's even been leftists that have been caught on camera saying that we are allowed to be here because we're being paid to be here. Shown it right here on The Swamp over the last couple of months. So here, let's give the New Jersey governor a watch.
Let me be clear.
By the way, this was a day or two ago.
An incredibly dangerous situation. It makes the situation worse, and I refuse to back down in fighting the Trump administration and the threats they've made. We know that people from outside the state have been interfering in the protests and escalating them.
Thank the Democrats for that. 5
of the 6 people arrested last night by state police were from outside New Jersey. And some national extremist groups have become involved in the protest here
especially on
today.
Conservative side.
To the people coming from out of state to create chaos and dangerous situations,
Kamala Harris,
you should not be here. You are not helping the people detained at Delaney Hall. You're not helping detainee families, and you're certainly not keeping New Jersey safe.
Oh my God, she's such a fascist. She's saying that you're not allowed to be in New Jersey. You shouldn't even be here. You need to go back where you came from. Does that sound familiar? All right, so anyway, let's just move on to the next one. Again, this was over the weekend. That was on May 30th when that was posted around 4:30 p.m. But of course, the riots, they ramped up regardless. And let's just get straight into it. From Homeland Security, from May 31st, so just yesterday during the daytime, our ICE operations continue undeterred. Any attempts to obstruct law enforcement or disrupt our operations will not be tolerated. And Yakov Strasberg says a group of ICE vehicles go past the barricades to enter the Delaney Hall Detention Center. So let's have a look at all these vehicles. Looks like a motorcade of sorts. So there you go, motorcade, heading into the facility. Let's rock and roll to the next one. I got a bunch from Homeland Security. They were busy over the weekend. Rioters will not slow us down. The perimeter around Delaney Hall is fully closed. No rioters breached the perimeter last night. Our ICE operations continue undeterred, and they're talking about Saturday night. Anyone who attempts to obstruct law enforcement or disrupt our operations will be prosecuted and face justice. And another one from the Strasberg fellow. Not only non-law enforcement people out of Delaney Hall so far this morning, on the side of the barricades that I'm on are an NBC News crew, of course there is, and one protester who is pissed off about the barricades being so far away from the detention center. So let's have a look at this. Just a quick 5 seconds. You see, there they are, NBC, WNBC. So yeah, of course they're there because they can't miss a moment of that, so they can continue to propagandize their audience. And let's roll on to the next, from May 31st. Together we held the line. The perimeter around Delaney Hall is secure and no rioters breached the perimeter last night. So it's basically the same post, just with a different image. Alongside our New Jersey law enforcement partners, we will not allow violent rioters to slow ICE down. And there you go. There's the riot squad, or the counter protest police, whatever it is that they call them. They're out there in full force. They got the shields and everything, the helmets, ready to rock and roll, standing in the middle of the street. because the people that they have to deal with are extremely unruly. Even after they created the barricades, they created the free protest zone, or whatever the hell they called it, that they put together on Friday. And we've got this together from our state and local law enforcement partners. We have secured the area around Delaney Hall. Anyone who attempts to obstruct law enforcement or disrupt our facility will face the full weight of the law. We won't back down. So there's the barricades that they had put up. And look, these orange barricades, they've been out there all along. It's just that the leftists, they took the barricades away from the federal agents and they started forming up their own barricade, blocking the entrance and exit into the ICE facility. So it looks like they finally got that back under control. And so, yeah, there you go. Some litter strewn about. They got a couple of gates that are down. Just chaos and mayhem. No thanks to the left, the rioters, the Democrats. And rock and roll to the next one. To every single violent rioter who so much as lays a hand on our federal law enforcement, you will be found, you will be arrested, and you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We will always stand with our local law, or with our law enforcement entirely. And another one from Fox News. An anti-ICE rioter is arrested for threatening to kill federal agents and their families during violent demonstrations outside New Jersey's Delaney Hall. The FBI caught the suspect within 24 hours after using facial recognition technology to identify him. Ha! Well, there you go. AI. Touch a cop and this FBI will put you down, FBI Director Kash Patel said. So have a look.
Children, your wife, all day. My boy, I have your face. You're dead.
Yeah, so that didn't exactly happen over the weekend. I remember, I believe it was on Friday when we went over that video. Yeah, okay, there you go. It happened on Thursday. I was just about to say that most likely happened on Thursday, so there you go. But still, I mean, it's all connected. It's all being pieced together because, you know, they attempted over the weekend. They tried to get unruly, and a lot of them got arrested. We're going to get to that here in just a second. Patriots stand with ICE. And another one from Fox News. ICE, ICE, we love ICE. Trump supporters chant as they confront anti-ICE agitators at Delaney Hall amid violent demonstrations outside the New Jersey Detention Center. So even you got the MAGA crowd showing up. The conservatives.
We love ICE. ICE, ICE. 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 We love ICE.
Persians for Trump. It's hilarious, man. They're all chanting "We love ICE." I think that's just absolutely hilarious. If nothing else, I'm not saying that they're fully trolling the left. I just find it hilarious that they're just out there being the counter protesters to all of the brain dead lunatics over on the other side. Homeland Security, 3 rioters were arrested last night. Our message is clear. Lawlessness will not be tolerated. We will ensure anyone who attempts to obstruct or assault our law enforcement officers is arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Let's have a look at
brave
this.
law enforcement officers who were not yet in protective gear as these aggressors began to take them on properly called in additional support to deal with the unfolding situation. Law enforcement moved swiftly to secure the scene. They made 3 arrests yesterday, including of 1 individual for unlawfully possessing a weapon.
Just 3?
Violence has no place in our state.
No, well, it shouldn't have any place in your state. And it's about time they finally freaking did something about it. I mean, how many days did it take for them to finally get the state police to show up from New Jersey? Days, if not well over a week. I don't know. Like whenever these protester organizers, whenever they decided to show up to Delaney Hall, that's essentially when the madness started. And it did take several days for the state police to finally show up. And from Homeland Security, alongside our New Jersey law enforcement partners, we will not allow violent rioters to slow ICE down. The perimeter around Delaney Hall is fully closed, and our operations continue undeterred. Of course, same thing again. You know, they've put out this message numerous times over the weekend. Anyone who attempts to obstruct law enforcement, disrupt operations, will be prosecuted and face justice.
A perimeter has now been established until further notice at Roanoke and Wilson on Doremus Ave. We remain connected to our local, county, state, and federal partners to support the safety of all persons exercising their First Amendment rights. Last night, we sent out an emergency message delivered to everyone's phones within the area, advising them of the curfew that we created from the city of Newark.
Yeah, they did.
I encourage everyone to comply with the mandatory curfew
8 p.m., I think,
issued for the area within a 1/2 mile of Delaney Hall. The curfew will be enforced daily from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and will remain in effect until further notice.
Well, my question is, what the hell does that mean exactly, though? Because if the protesters are showing up, which, I mean, come on, dude, they're going to be out there all night. Are you really going to actually arrest every single person that's out there post 9 p.m.? I would certainly hope so. I mean, that's what the curfew's there for. If you show up within a half a mile to Delaney Hall, you will be placed under arrest. Although I didn't hear that exact messaging, I'm just assuming that's what the curfew's there for. Homeland Security, a reminder, lawlessness, rioting, and obstruction of law enforcement will not be tolerated. There you go with the state police, law enforcement. I'm sure ICE is probably in here. Maybe even Customs and Border Protection. They might be here too. I don't know for sure. Look, they got a sheriff's bus, so the sheriff's department's there. So all kinds of law enforcement partners, they're all there working to maintain law and order. And here we go, Homeland Security. This is 23 hours ago, so just last night. Order will prevail. The perimeter around our Delaney Hall facility is fully closed, and our ICE operations continued undeterred. Together with our New Jersey law enforcement partners, we will ensure anyone who attempts to obstruct or assault our law enforcement officers is arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Got another video. Yeah, copyright. Oh, light's glitching. Uh-oh. Well, you know what? That's probably a blessing in disguise anyway. Maybe if it glitches out enough, maybe YouTube won't pick up on it. All right, so moving on to Homeland Security. Another one from last night. Arrests are mounting. Finally, from Nick Sordor. Multiple arrests made as local and state police here in Newark move in on the rioters. Police department is pushing the perimeter back further and further. They're clearing this place. Let's have a look and see what they're up to. Again, this is last night. Turn it up a little bit.
Back to the sign. Back to the sign.
I'm surprised they're letting a film out there at all. It's probably, almost certainly after 9 p.m. I would assume he has press credentials. But regardless, is that okay? Is the press allowed there after 9 p.m.? Probably. Oh, you know, NBC News, ABC, and CNN, they're all going to be allowed out there probably. Okay, there we go. So a few arrests that were made. I heard 3 earlier, but I think the number was actually higher than that. I think it was like 9, but we'll have a look. Homeland Security, if you riot, you will face the consequences. Law and order prevails. Another one from Nick's Order. Breaking the mass arrest bus is officially being loaded here in Newark with rioters and their expensive kits being taken into custody. This is the way. Don't take their BS jersey. Damn, they got him forming a line. Another one, and another one. Bites the dust. Heading off to jail. Whether if they get in front of a judge who will just dismiss all the charges, I don't know. But that I don't think would really surprise anybody. I mean, wouldn't be the first time it's happened. I know it's happened plenty of times in the past where they go out and they riot, and they get before the judge, they just drop all the charges, you're free to go, and then they're right back out there the next day. All right, one more. Homeland Security sanctuary politicians like Rep. Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries' Timu Obama continues to promote hoaxes about Delaney Hall. This is a detention center. Detention Center. Everyone being held inside Delaney Hall broke the law by entering the United States illegally. No lawbreakers in history have been treated better than illegal aliens. All detainees have beds, they have clean water, they have comprehensive health care, and they even receive 3 meals a day. Wow, fancy that.
And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries appeared on the scene yesterday. Oh, he's got time. Look.
Delaney Hall should be shut down, and every single individual, particularly those at a high level connected to this facility, they're engaging in a depraved indifference to human life. And every single
if it were
member
a
of this
5-star
Trump
experience, he'd be saying the same damn thing. We all know it.
So he's not interested in
doesn't
people
matter how
breaking the
nice
law
it
and
is
going
in
after
there.
cops and breaking curfews and everything else. He wants to push his politics.
Of course he does.
Security clapped back in this
That's
post.
the Democrat
DHS
way.
doesn't make the laws, Congress does. We don't pick and choose which laws to enforce, and neither should you as a lawmaker. It is a crime to enter the U.S. illegally. Everyone held inside Delaney Hall broke the law. This is a detention center. We do not provide luxury accommodations. What we do provide are basic necessities, like beds, clean water, comprehensive health care, and 3 meals a day until they go home. The department also shared a weekly detainee menu with Fox. It includes omelets, fajitas, stir-fries, barbecued chicken.
Oh, look at that. It's even culturally appropriate. It even more or less lines up with where they probably came from. And anyway, so I watched a Joe Rogan episode, probably the first Joe Rogan episode I've seen in at least 2 or 3 years. It was him with an individual named Andrew Wilson. He's kind of risen up in the conservative sphere over the last couple of years. And during the conversation, they played a clip of Hillary Clinton from 2008 when she was running. And she was all about border security. We're going to keep all the illegal immigrants out. The immigrants that come in, they need to learn English. It was absolutely wild. It was almost as if she were with the MAGA camp. And another one for Barack Obama, I think it was in 2010 after he was elected. He was given a very similar speech talking about how we have to keep the border locked down tight. We can't allow them to cut to the front of the line. We've got millions of legal immigrants who are trying to get in, and it's just not fair to them. So, I mean, like, not so long ago, that's exactly how Democrats saw it, which, of course, they had, what was it, like powerful labor unions that were pushing very heavily to keep all of the illegal immigrants out, obviously, but I don't know what exactly has changed. I don't know. I haven't been in a union since I was like 19 years old. But still, I mean, maybe they lost some of their power, or maybe just Democrats don't give a shit anymore, and they're so drunk and obsessed with power that it doesn't matter. They're just ideologically driven at this point, and they will stop at nothing except to get more Democrat seats in the House. And I think even then they still won't stop. You know, if they get a majority to the point where it looks like they're just going to win over and over for the foreseeable future, do you think they're going to lock down the borders and just seal it up and, all right, we're good? No, I don't think so. I think they're just going to keep pouring them in more and more and more. All right, so a reminder for Rep. Jeffries, DHS doesn't make the laws, Congress does. We don't pick and choose which laws to enforce, and neither should you as a lawmaker. It is a crime to enter the United States illegally. Everyone being held inside Delaney Hall broke the law. U.S. Code Title 8, Section 1325. This is a detention center. We do not provide luxury accommodations. What we do provide are basic necessities like beds and clean water, comprehensive health care, 3 meals a day until they go home. If you come into our country illegally, we will find you and arrest you. We encourage all illegal aliens to self-deport today, because if you self-deport, then you won't find yourself in one of these detention facilities. Instead, actually quite the opposite. You'll be given $2,600 in cash, and you'll be given a free flight home, courtesy of the American taxpayers, and that is way more than they should be getting in the first place. So here is the entire, at least the entire video of what Rep. Jeffries decided to share with all of us. And he says, just completed a congressional oversight visit with members of the New Jersey delegation. Delaney Hall should be shut down. This is not America. Yeah, it definitely is America. Last I checked, New Jersey is a state inside the United States, but okay. T-Boo Obama.
Immigration
I'll turn
enforcement
it
should
up.
be fair, just,
there we go.
and
Is that
humane.
better?
That's not what's going on here at Delaney Hall. We spoke to several individuals, none of whom has
Speak
a criminal
English.
record. Many of whom have been detained here at Delaney Hall.
They all have criminal records.
For months. This is not America.
Yeah, it literally
The lack
is.
of access to quality food, that's
Which
not
they do.
America. The lack of access to adequate medical treatment, That's not America. The retaliation that is taking place.
What, you mean gender reassignment surgery? Yeah, they're probably not going to get that.
The fact that there are 18-year-old high school girls being held here.
18, last I checked, that's an adult.
Delaney Hall should be shut down. And every
yes, the whole prefrontal cortex, 25 years old.
Particularly those at a high level connected to this facility, they're engaging in a depraved indifference to human life.
Propaganda.
And every single member of this Trump administration is going to be held accountable.
Yep, low IQ propaganda. That's your Democratic Party, ladies and gentlemen. So you can only imagine if they get absolute power in the near future. You can only imagine what they're going to do with it. It would be almost unthinkable. All right, so One American News. Newark Mayor Ros Bacara has imposed a nightly curfew around Delaney Hall as tensions continue to rise outside the immigration detention facility, which we basically already heard and already read about that. So, but anyway, we've got this from One American News, and let's have a look. It's about 2 minutes.
Newark's mayor establishes a nightly curfew outside Delaney Hall as tensions boil outside the detention facility. Here's One America's Bailey Broadwater with the latest.
I think that's how it started.
Protests outside an immigration facility in New Jersey are escalating as state leaders look to combat the rising
mainstream media to think about.
On Sunday, ICE confirmed Delaney Hall was now secure and visitation hours could resume. It followed Newark Mayor Ros Bacara issuing a nightly curfew for a half-mile area surrounding the facility Saturday night after days of violent clashes between anti-ICE protesters and law enforcement officers.
Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
Last week, Governor Mikey Sherrill ordered state police to assume control outside the detention center as protesters clashed with ICE agents over the alleged conditions of detainees. Protesters are advocating for better conditions for the detainees who launched a strike a week ago, citing poor living conditions. Despite publicly supporting the clashes outside Delaney Hall and even calling for its closure, Governor Sherrill seemingly reversed course and called for peace.
Today and going forward, I urge those protesting outside of Delaney Hall to bring the temperature down so we can focus on the detainees and their families. So comply with the lawful orders from local and state law enforcement and let advocates, faith leaders, and members of this community continue their work.
DHS has repeatedly denied any claims of unfair treatment, saying detainees are provided with adequate nutrition, living arrangements, and overall proper treatment. Pro-ICE demonstrators have also begun assembling to counter anti-ICE protests outside the facility, reminding protesters many of these detainees are dangerous criminals.
Yeah,
I got a murder there. He raped my niece.
We'll have a look at some of them in a minute.
Now. I'm going to make sure they deport him. And that's why I'm here, to support ICE 100%. And Donald Trump.
There you go.
The curfew outside Delaney Hall runs from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., with the main road alongside the facility closed to pedestrian traffic. Bailey Broadwater, One America News.
Yeah, they don't care if they're criminals or if they're not criminals. Democrats just want them counted for the 2030 census. That's why they're fighting tooth and nail to keep them here as long as they possibly can. Senator Marsha Blackburn riots in front of walls, graffitied. They wrote, "Kill ICE." The administration has every right to take a zero-tolerance approach to the rioters. Anyone who threatens or harms law enforcement needs to face the full force of the law. That is not peaceful protest, people. If you're spray painting "Kill ICE" on the wall in front of the Delaney Detention Center, that's not peaceful protesting. And we got this from New York Post. Maybe they'll have a couple of other images in here. At least 20 protesters arrested. 20 in ICE Detention Center, Delaney Hall, as ICE vows zero tolerance for the rioters. So this was published today, about 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And the police arrested. Okay, so we got that in Battle, New Jersey ICE Detention Center, Delaney Hall, Sunday night after they broke a new curfew imposed to stop the violent rallies from continuing for a third week straight, as the Department of Homeland Security vowed to show zero tolerance for rioters. Local and state police closed off a length of Doremus Avenue, roughly, a quarter mile around Newark's Delaney Hall to stop crowds of protesters from reaching the immigrant detention facility and launched an all-out offensive against any unruliness. It's about damn time. And so there's one of the images. At least 20 protesters arrested at the ICE detention facility after a curfew to curb violence began on Sunday night, and it is continuing into tonight at 9 p.m. And police hold a barricade as protesters push outside Delaney Hall. So there you go. And after the cops announced the 9 p.m. curfew to encourage people to leave, the number of protesters dwindled to roughly 100. Police in riot gear then advanced into the crowd of naysayers while shouting, "Move in." Cops fired 2 rounds of tear gas toward protesters who yelled, "Give peace a chance," and "No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA." Yeah, they've been chanting that nonsense for years, sending more people fleeing into roughly 50 protesters and members of the press were corralled into a tight circle. Yeah, man, they'll corral the press, they'll corral everyone into it. Now, I doubt that the press were arrested. If they have press credentials and, they usually let them out of it. As those with press passes filed out of the group, officers swooped in and cuffed roughly 20 to 25 remaining protesters. Police didn't immediately confirm the exact number of arrests. Several arrests were made in front of a wall disturbingly graffitied with "Kill ICE" across it. And again, they're violating curfew. It's not going to be a felony. They're not going to be spending any significant time in jail. They're going to be back out there in the next day, and I'm sure they're just, day after day, they're just going to get more and more just violation of curfew counts. They'll probably rack up 10, 15, 20 of them, and then ultimately, like I said, I have a feeling that the judge is just going to dismiss all of it at the end of the day. The post witnessed between 20 and 25 protesters being led away in cuffs, but an exact number of arrests wasn't immediately available on Sunday night. Well, at least we know it's at least 20. So there's some of the protesters, and they're hilarious, I guess, like anti-police gear, whatever the hell you want to call that. Like plastic trash cans cut in half and so on. Okay. And see another one. Protesters flanked by officers in riot vests and helmets were cuffed and hauled into Essex County Sheriff's Department buses. And footage posted by DHS captured the protesters flanked by officers in riot vests and helmets being hauled into Essex County Sheriff's Department buses. Another clip captured a man sitting and being dragged from behind by multiple officers who were standing in a barricade line, which the department captioned, "Don't beat this guy." I don't think we got this one. No, we didn't. Damn. Well, they snatched him up quick. Yoink. And you notice how these cameras, it's almost like this person is working with, if not for, the mainstream news. Because you notice how the cameras are just all around this general area, snapping photos like crazy. And, of course, they're going to haul them away. But that's how they play things up, man. Mainstream media and the Democrats, they're essentially the same thing these days. If you riot, you'll face the consequences. Law and order prevails. DHS posted on X, "Zero tolerance for rioters." DHS, the Newark Police Department, and the Essex County Sheriff's Department did not immediately respond to the post inquiries about the arrests. Newark Mayor Ras Baraka, that's who it is, right? Ras Baraka instituted a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew around Delaney Hall until further notice, following a series of intense violent clashes between anti-ICE protesters and agents earlier in the week. Individuals who violate the curfew will receive an initial warning but will be removed and face possible legal action if they refuse to comply. I somehow doubt that, but that's what they're saying. And Mayor Ras Baraka instituted a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew around Delaney Hall following a series of intense violent clashes between anti-ICE protesters and the agents. And there's another image. Dispersed during, clashes with law enforcement officers outside the Delaney Hall Detention Center on Saturday, May 30th, 2026 at Newark, New Jersey. Chaos has engulfed the immigration detention facility in Newark since at least May the 22nd after top Democratic officials, including New Jersey Governor Mickey, right? Yeah, I think it's Mickey. That's such a New Jersey name for a woman governor. Cheryl raised concerns about inhumane conditions in the facility and the lack of visitation hours. So what about all the other ICE detention facilities? Is this happening at all of them and this one just happens to be getting all the press coverage? Or did they just strategically just zero in on this one and then they'll cause some trouble for a couple of weeks and then all the paid protesters will just move on to another facility, maybe? Or is this actually all happening everywhere? I'm sure the one in Portland probably has never simmered down. I'm sure they're still out there every night. Inmates inside reportedly launched a hunger strike over the conditions, but the Trump administration has countered that the standard of living at Delaney Hall is higher than most U.S. prisons, which I'm sure it probably is. It would not be the least bit surprising. So here we go. Worst of the worst. That's what WOW stands for at .dhs.gov/New Jersey. So these are some of the worst criminals that have been arrested in New Jersey and most likely are in this detention facility right now. I don't think that it says specifically the ones that are in what detention facility. It's part of the reason why they don't allow cameras in. They don't allow people to take pictures inside the facility because they don't want, individuals that are being held there to be made public in case they've got ties to organized crime and for safety reasons and so on. So this dude from Honduras, assault, homicide, negligent, manslaughter in a vehicle in Newark, Santos Archaga Mendoza. And Dominican Republic, immigration, possession of fraud, immigration documents, and also heroin and cocaine selling, illegal reentry. And let's see, robbery, burglary, false imprisonment for this guy. This dude, aggravated assault, non-family strong arm, cocaine and drug smuggling for that lady. And then this guy, let's see, conspiracy, threat, terroristic state offenses, and burglary. This dude's got possession of a weapon. Another one for burglary. Another one, or this one, sex offense against a child. Fondling a child. S assault. Another one, S assault. Fraud, forgery, receiving stolen property. And this list goes on 73 pages. So how many is that per page? What was that, like 10, 12? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So yeah, my math isn't great, but 12 times 73, it adds up to a lot. And that's just in New Jersey. And, that doesn't include the other 49 states, which I'm sure they've got it all categorized, which you could choose any state, like state I live in. So Florida, search, and let's see how many pages there are of this. Probably a lot, 326. And of course, maybe the number is higher than many other states because Florida fully cooperates with immigration and customs enforcement. So naturally, they would be arresting more of them. But you would think that would deter illegal immigrants from even coming here in the first place, that they'd be hiding out in sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, but I don't know, man, apparently not. From C3, ICE deportations from the Clinton era, 2 million with no riots also. And George W. Bush, there were 2 million deportations with no riots. And same with Obama, only with Obama, there were 5 million deportations, no riots. With Trump, 2 million with no riots. Are they sure about that? Trump 1.0, there really weren't any mass riots or anything going on when Trump's first term was in effect. I don't know, man. I kind of have a feeling that there probably were, but whatever. Biden, 4 million with no riots. And then Trump 2.0, 900,000 deportations with riots, with protests, and with Democrat outrage. It's all manufactured to stop Trump. All right. From CBP, the CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott, today I'm proud to announce Rosario Pete Vasquez as the U.S. Border Patrol Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol. Sworn in today, Pete has dedicated more than 26 years to securing our nation's borders and serving the men and women of the Border Patrol. As we continue building on the most secure border in history, I can't think of no one better prepared to lead this organization into its next chapter. Check him out getting sworn in.
I state your name.
I, Rosario Vasquez.
Will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, sworn in, done deal. And there you have it. Once again, U.S. Border Patrol Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, Rosario Pete Vasquez. And matter of fact, I'm going to give that account a follow. Actually, surprised I wasn't following that already, but that's all right. I am now. So I'll bring that into the fold and add that to the list. And anything that comes out of that account that needs to be shared, I'll be sharing it. Another one from CBP, Rapid Response. Well, they actually just reposted Rapid Response's post from 9 hours ago as of this recording. Border Patrol operation nabs 3 dozen illegal immigrants driving semi-trucks in Arizona. This is out of the Washington Times. Border Patrol operation 3 dozen, Arizona. And what to know. Let's have a look at what to know. The bullet points. Border Patrol agents arrested 36 illegal immigrants driving tractor trailers in Arizona. Operation Checkmate ran from May 11th through the 15th and detected 52 illegal immigrants. 29 of the truck drivers had commercial driver's licenses from various states. Let me guess. New York, California, probably Minnesota. Many drivers were in the U.S. under questionable Biden immigration programs. Border Patrol agents said they nabbed 36 illegals who were driving tractor trailers on roads during a recent operation in Arizona, highlighting what the Trump administration has described as a wave of migrants getting behind the wheel of dangerous vehicles. Operation Checkmate was led by the Border Patrol's Yuma sector and ran from May 11th through 15th. Agents detected a total of 52 illegal immigrants during the operation, with 36 of them nabbed while driving semi-trucks. Quote, Operation Checkmate reflects our commitment to safeguarding communities and roads from unlawfully present drivers who pose significant risks to public safety, said Dustin W. Caudle, acting chief patrol agent in Yuma. My agents are on patrol every day to ensure we stop these individuals and prevent more deadly crashes from occurring on the roads across the United States. And it looks like they're loading them up on planes, and they're getting them out of here. Of the 36 truck drivers, 29 of them actually had commercial driver's licenses issued by states, even though the Trump administration says they weren't supposed to. Well, in fact, there are states, I know California is definitely one that's been sanctioned by the Department of Transportation to the tune of what, 80 million, maybe it was up to $100 million that they're withholding from the state of California until they get their shit together and they start following federal law and they revoke all of these driver's licenses. And the government calls them non-domiciled drivers. Most of them were here on legally iffy Biden immigration leniency programs, such as humanitarian parole. Despite the lack of firm status, several states, most notably California, Washington, and New York, were willing to issue them commercial driver's licenses. And in the case of New York, they didn't even have to give them a name. They just put no name given on the CDL and gave it to them anyway. Some of those drivers have been involved in horrific accidents in recent months, drawing attention to the situation. Florida asked the Supreme Court to hear a case challenging Washington and California, citing the case of Harjinder Singh, who authorities have made an illegal U-turn. This is back in September, I think, across the median on the Florida Turnpike, crashing into a minivan and killing all 3 of its passengers. Mr. Singh, a citizen of India, obtained his license from Washington, even though Florida said he couldn't read English well enough to understand America's road signs. The Supreme Court declined to hear the Florida case. Indian nationals predominated among the Border Patrol Arizona arrests, accounting for 30 of them. The other 6 were from Mexico, El Salvador, and Russia. Customs and Border Protection said most of them did not have work permits issued during the Biden administration, but these, quote-unquote, are no longer valid. CBP said all of those caught will be deported. Part of the problem, according to federal officials, is that the work permits are temporary and conditional. When the Trump administration revoked Biden-era parole programs, it meant those permits were also suddenly invalid, though the cards themselves still had validity dates in the future. And some states issued licenses that stretched beyond the work permit expiration date anyway, which is ridiculous. So their work permit expired, I don't know, January 1st of 2029, but their CDL is good till like 2032 or whatever. Like, that makes any sense. The Transportation Department accused California and New York of doing just that. Last year, the department announced it was withholding some grant money from California. There you go. Until the state changed its practices and revoked thousands of already issued licenses. I want to say it's like $80 million. It was a lot. And in April, the department issued a similar declaration against New York. Federal officials said a review of 200 non-domiciled drivers in New York found more than half were issued in violation of federal law. All right, rock and roll. Let's go on to the next one. Get the roads cleaned up one by one. Look, if they can't speak English, they shouldn't be driving. I mean, that's just common freaking sense, and that's just a start. Homeland Security Watch Secretary Mullen holds a press conference honoring several heroes from the 2025 Dallas ICE facility sniper attack. That was the one where the dude was using the bolt action. Was it Mossberg or Mauser, something like that? I don't know. I can't exactly remember. But anyway, so this press conference, it's a bit long, so I'll give it a couple of minutes. In fact, let me get ahead of myself. I'll repost this. There's a direct link to my profile below in the description if you want to check out the whole thing. And you just click on the link, takes you directly there. Probably just scroll down 1 or 2 posts and you'll see it really easily, or you can just go to DHS.gov and check it out over there. So let's have a look at this with Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen with the Department of Homeland Security.
Basis. We focus.
Here we go.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. We're in Dallas, Texas, at the detention center here, and while we are celebrating 3 individuals for their heroic actions taken on a very dark and bad day, something that should have never taken place. It's the irony of this is that each day we go after the worst of the worst, and that's what the ICE agents and that's what DHS and our other 21 components do on a daily basis. We focus on keeping our homeland safe. But today we get a pause for a little bit and we recognize the best of the best. See, the left, they want to demonize our ICE officers every single day, but really they're enforcing the laws that these individuals that want to demonize them, the congressmen and senators and even governors that want to go out and say they're breaking the Constitution and that they're, I'll call them all these horrific names. The truth is, not one thing they can point to where they say they ever broke the Constitution. There's not one thing that they can say that they're doing that is outside the law that they are mandated to do, that Congress has the one that mandated them to do so. They enforce the laws that were passed by our nation's leaders. And when we get a pause for just a second and recognize the activities of 3 individuals that were willing to risk their lives to the same people that were simply being arrested just sometimes an hour before or the day before, but they are being processed here in Dallas, Texas. The fact that they're willing to sacrifice their lives for individuals that's in their custody would speak volumes to what type of law enforcement we have that work in ICE and at DHS. And for me, being the secretary of DHS, it's an honor to be here today.
All right, skip just ahead just a little bit, and we'll see them get recognized.
I'll go ahead and I'll start off with recognizing Deportation Officer Andres Goche. Dio Goche demonstrated extraordinary courage during the active shooter incident, making the initial 911 call and providing critical information. He risked his safety to extract multiple detainees from a transport van under fire, enabling them to receive life-saving care and stabilizing them until advanced medical help arrived. Andres Goche. All right. Deportation Officer Marco Solis. Dio Solis responded under active threat, administering life-saving first aid to 2 critically injured detainees. He conducted immediate trauma assessments, provided emergency care, and coordinated with responders to ensure safe casualty movement. Marco Solis. Enforcement and Removal Assistant Christopher Pine. ERA Pine administered life-saving first aid to 2 detainees, establishing a casualty care area under duress. He provided direct emergency interventions, coordinated with responders, and sustained patient stability until transfer, directly contributing to the preservation of life. ERA Christopher Pine. And now I'll pass it on. I'll introduce Congressman Brandon Gill.
All right, well, we could cut it there. So we just wanted to make sure that we got to see all 3 get recognized. And again, this is reposted if you want to check it out. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next one from CBS News. More than 6,300 children have been detained by ICE during President Trump's second term. 97% have no criminal records. So, just before we get into the weeds with this, I wanted to take a quick look and see, what about the Obama administration for 8 years? Now, Trump hasn't been in for 8 full years, so maybe even just take the number from Obama and just, I don't know, like divide it by 4, or, be a little more generous, I guess, or maybe not so much. But anyway, regardless, let's have a look at this. So roughly 200,000 to 300,000 unaccompanied immigrant children were apprehended and placed in federal custody, mostly short-term ORR HHS shelters during Obama's administration between fiscal year 2009 to 2016. The key numbers, fiscal year 2009 through 2013, rose from a low to 8,000 to 20,000 a year. So that was the lowest point, apparently, during the Obama administration, 8,000. But of course, CBS, they're complaining about, 4,000 or 6,300, making it sound like that is just an incomprehensible number. Oh my God, it's so horrific. And anyway, so 39,000 roughly in fiscal year 2013, fiscal year 2014 peak, about 68,500. That was the big surge year. What if that was the year of the whole children in cages? Because that actually happened under the Obama administration, even though they tried to blame Trump for that. But it wasn't Trump. He wasn't the president back then. It was Obama. And fiscal year 2015 to 16, it dropped, all the way down to 40,000 and then 60,000 in 2016. So now that we got the numbers all worked out from Obama's administration, and we'll just have a quick look at this. But the children, they're held like criminals. Of course, they weren't held like criminals in the Obama administration. It's not like they were putting them in cages or anything. Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, so Joel Andre, 17 years old, immigrant from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a soccer-obsessed high school junior, so they're going to start tugging on your emotional heartstrings immediately, who now lives just outside of Portland, Maine. At the moment, for Joel and his younger sister, homework is taking a back seat to this summer's World Cup, which is the perfect distraction at the dinner table for a family that badly needs one. Every time I'm doing something, I always think about Olivia. And is their 19-year-old sister. All three, along with their mother, were detained last November at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, Texas. So they're getting their quotes and more quotes. So the family fled the Congo after Karine, an activist, was brutalized for speaking out against the ruling regime. They came here seeking political asylum. Laura Mukherjee, director of the Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia University, and the family's lawyer, says if Karine and her children did not leave the DRC, chances are they would not be alive. Now, look, if they do like a full background check and I don't even think the word investigate is probably the right way to put that, but if they determined that they were being religiously persecuted, or they were in a situation where it was extremely hostile and they were looking for asylum, whether if it's religious or political or what have you, look, I'm not opposed to that. If there are some people who are being horrifically persecuted and their life is at stake, and if we can offer them an opportunity to get out of that situation, provided that we have the room, we've got the funds, we're in a position where we're able to do so, I don't think a whole lot of people would really argue against that. It's just the countless hundreds of thousands who are taken advantage by trying to claim asylum, but the only thing that they're really trying to claim is what? Economic asylum. Like they just don't make enough money, so they want to come to the United States and make a shitload of money. That's not good enough. But anyway, so the family's lawyer says if Karine and her children did not leave the DRC, chances are they would not be alive. According to Mukherjee, when the family arrived in 2022, they were vetted and released to await their hearing after they were deemed to pose no threat. They complied with their check-ins. They showed up for every single appointment. They did everything they were supposed to. I mean, is that really true, though? Or was there something that they didn't do? Because it wasn't like that they followed, dotted every I, crossed every T, and then they just snatched them up anyway. Of course, that's the direction CBS is going to try to steer us into. In February 2025, a judge ordered them deported. Scared of being sent back to the Congo, they tried to go to Canada, but were denied entry and sent back to the U.S., where they were then sent to Dilley. And again, there's just based on the evidence, based on everything the judge reviewed, they reviewed and they looked at it, and for one reason or another, whatever the reason is, they were not granted. So you just got to follow the judge's decision. And looks like that they were trying to flee the country and trying to sneak into Canada. And look, if they got into Canada, they probably would have been in the same situation, just in a Canadian detention facility as opposed to the United States, because I'm sure they got those up there too, even though I don't know if their borders are as wide open as ours was under the Biden administration, but there are a lot of immigrants that are being allowed into Canada, where they were sent to Dilley. Mukherjee has been inside Dilley. It's a series of trailers, she said. Families and children alike consistently report that they do not have access to sufficient clean drinking water, and that they found live worms and bugs and mold in their meals. The lights are on 24/7, making it really difficult for everyone detained there to sleep. Those accounts have been repeated by dozens of detainees in sworn testimony, written letters, and interviews. More than, look, like, yeah, a nightlight, that's one thing. Do they really have blaring fluorescent lights on completely all throughout the facility, just blindingly bright? Yeah, I mean, look, that ain't cool. If that's what they're doing, that ain't cool. But like worms and bugs and stuff, I kind of find that a little hard to believe. Anyway, but more than 6,300 children under 18, some as young as 2 months old, have been detained by federal immigration authorities during Trump's second term, which is not bad compared to Obama's numbers where he was pushing 40,000. What was it, like 60,000 at some point? Yeah, 68,500. And this was since Trump was inaugurated, right? Is that what it said? Since, let's see, where was that? Yeah, that's what it says. More than 6,300 during President Trump's second term. That's actually a very low number, just given the historical numbers. So it's the only place I can think of in America where we imprison young children who have done absolutely nothing wrong, said Congressman Joaquin Castro. Instead of treating them like asylum seekers who are vetted to come into the country, they treated them like criminals. The Democratic representative from San Antonio is calling for Dilley to be shut down. Well, why don't we just, like, what are we waiting for? The judge ordered their removal. Let's deport them today, tomorrow, right now. It's probably because they're going to appeal, then they're going to appeal again, probably going to appeal a third time. That's probably why they're sitting in these facilities for months, if not years on end. Look, I'm sure they could just simply say, okay, you know, like they ordered our removal, let's go back home, and then that's that. But I don't know, you know, what do I know? I don't know. CoreCivic denies it. Okay, so when President Trump reopened Dilley in 2025, a for-profit company, CoreCivic, was given a contract worth $180 million annually to run it. Look, I'm not crazy about for-profit companies running jails or running detention facilities. Although, like, do you think the conditions would be worse, or do you think they'd be better if it was 100% government run? It would probably be far worse. That would just be my opinion. But anyway, I'll leave that below in the description if you want to have a look at that. Let's move on to Tom Emmer, the GOP majority whip. Unbelievable. Tim Walz will move mountains to keep criminal illegal aliens on the streets in Minnesota, which he had the same urgency when it comes to protecting Americans from fraud. Democrats continue putting illegal aliens over American citizens. And of course, he didn't tag in the article, but I'll see if I can find it. Tim Walz pardons illegal alien convicted of armed robbery before his ICE deportation to Laos. And Walz inaccurately called Jai Vang a citizen and said he could find no reason Minnesota would be safer with his removal. So yeah, so Tim Walz called him, I guess, U.S. citizen. Apparently, looks like that's going to be the I don't know, some statement that he gave, which will be, this is all going to be linked below in the description if you want to take a look at that video. It's a little bit too long for right now in this video, but I'll just read through some of the article. Minnesota's Democratic governor on Wednesday pardoned an illegal alien previously convicted of armed robbery before he could be deported by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Jai Vang, an illegal alien from Laos, was convicted of aiding and abetting and armed robbery in Hennepin County in 1994, way back in 1994. The incident occurred when he was 18 years old. He served his prison term and was released back into the United States. He was arrested by ICE as part of Operation Metro Surge in the Minneapolis area in January, according to DHS, released from the time. When Governor Walz learned of Vang's arrest by the federal government and that Vang had requested clemency to avoid being deported in June, the governor called a special session of the state's Board of Pardons Clemency Review Commission to ensure the case was reviewed before Vang's deportation could be completed. Yeah, because, you know, Tim Walz, he doesn't have anything else better to do. He's just sitting there twiddling his thumbs. It's not like that he's dealing with this $9 billion mountain of debt that's just piled all up on top of him. And of course, he's not dealing with that anyway. I take full responsibility. And then he just literally does nothing. The Clemency Review Commission, which is joined by Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, another Yahoo, real winner, and the state Supreme Court Chief Justice Natalie Hudson voted unanimously to pardon Vang, even though he committed armed robbery. Okay. The commission reasoned that Vang hadn't committed further crimes since he was released from prison. Oh yeah, so that totally justifies a pardon. So if I don't know, so like everyday Joe Schmo citizen commits, strong arm robbery, it makes, what about the victim? Like this person who's probably going to go through trauma for the rest of their life, probably has some form of PTSD. I mean, did they even think to consult with them? Did they invite the victims and maybe the victim's family to this hearing where they're going to consider pardoning them? I somehow doubt it. But they don't give a shit about victims. I mean, they say they do. They, if anything, they just want to manufacture more and more victims. During the hearing, Waltz inaccurately referred to Vang as a citizen. He said Vang has become a critical member of the community since his release from prison. I can find no reason how Minnesota will be safer or better if Mr. Vang is deported to a country he's not been to since he was a child. I do not see how it would serve his family nor the economic interests where we have tax-paying citizen who is creating job growth and living a life free from any criminal activity. Well, I have a feeling that the taxpayers spent way more money on his imprisonment than he has contributed to society. That would just be my opinion. So, all right, so we'll just move on to the next thing and see what else we got. From Eric Daugherty, now the Senate leader, John Thune, just said President Trump should drop the $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund if Trump wants the border reconciliation bill to pass. They're still talking about this, dude. I thought they passed this months ago. I kept reading while doing this show that they passed the big bill that DHS, they're going to get their funding. ICE and Border Patrol, they got their funding. It's good to go. It's passed. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, I read the same thing all over again. I'm like, dude, I thought this already passed. And evidently, it still hasn't even passed yet. So John Thune says the White House should shut it down themselves. Of course, they're talking about Trump's lawsuit that he dropped with the federal government, and they settled on, well, it wasn't a full dropping of the lawsuit. Well, it was a compromise, $1.8 billion as opposed to the $10 billion that he was suing over, and he was going to set up this anti-weaponization fund. A lot of it had to do with the January 6ers that were wrongfully prosecuted or were thrown in prison for years for over, simple trespassing, and they were going to have access to some of this money, I guess, as a form of compensation. But now Leader John Thune is extremely strongly against President Trump setting this up. So anyway, it finishes up with saying this after Republicans went home on recess without voting on anything because they threw a fit over the fund. It's absolutely unbelievable. So see what this is all about.
Inside his own party, Senate Republicans left town without voting on a bill to fully fund ICE and border protection after pushing back on the president's anti-weaponization compensation fund. Now we have Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram with more clarity on all of this for us from Capitol Hill.
Republicans are anti-J6 now.
Revolted about the weaponization fund.
I think a lot of people are troubled by it. Nobody knew anything about it. We learned about it in the press.
Democrats and many Republicans plan to kill the fund with Senate amendments.
Maybe this is the one that will finally have them
say
publicly that this is a corrupt action at its heart.
Senate Majority Leader John Thune said the White House should have consulted Congress about the anti-weaponization effort, but presidential allies defended the fund.
Every single Republican who was on the
setting it up on behalf of the government. It's his own personal thing.
Talked about stopping the weaponization of government.
President Trump says, quote, I gave up a lot of money allowing the anti-weaponization fund to go forward. Former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said,
well, what's the alternative? Like Trump just, pockets the entirety of it? Because that's the settlement as far as I understand. If it's not going to go to this compensation fund, then it just goes directly to President Trump himself.
Would be, quote, utterly stupid, morally wrong to award money to pardon January 6th rioters. Some conservatives are angry that Senate GOP leaders pulled the plug.
It's pretty gutless on the Senate's part to what they did, and their leadership needs to be called out for it.
They need to do a factory reset at the Senate. It's absurd what they're doing.
ICE and Border Patrol lack funding yet again.
My main concern is that we actually have those interior.
That's why the Save America Act was doomed from the start.
ICE enforcement functions funded, right?
No money for ICE and Border Patrol could be a problem for the World Cup, and this likely jeopardizes other GOP priorities like passing a signature economic bill before the election. Molly?
And this is also why the filibuster will not be nuked by the Republicans. They're just going to wait and hand all of that over to Democrats when they seize power, whether if it's going to be in the midterms where they get congressional power or maybe even in 2028 if they end up securing the Oval Office. And if they nuke the filibuster then, shit, man, you think things are bad now, just wait. Good grief. Jake Sherman knew that the administration is expected to announce that they are going to comply with the court order and not go forward on the weaponization fund. I think Senate Republicans are going to want language in the bill that will prevent the administration from ever creating this fund. And prior to this, he said, I'm told that the Trump administration is planning to have a statement soon on the weaponization fund, and the statement will be aimed at restarting the reconciliation process on the Hill. All caveats that things in this administration are very nonlinear, and what the administration believes will help may not actually help. So I checked. I looked at the White House and I looked at Rapid Response 47 before I started recording this, and I didn't see anything at all from President Trump or from Speaker Mike Johnson or really from anybody else except John Thune. I mean, nobody else had made any mention of it, so I'll take a quick look and see if they dropped something over the last hour or so. So from 2 hours ago, we're going to get to that. That has to do with the Iran situation. 3 hours ago, so no, there's nothing from Rapid Response at least. So let's check the White House. Probably not. Usually whatever the White House puts out, Rapid Response will also in turn echo what they're saying 48 minutes ago. So let's see. No, the Department of the Interior making D.C. safe and beautiful again. And let's see, 3 hours. Okay, so no, there's no movement on it yet. So there is nothing official, that at least not as of right now, where Trump says that he will be dropping this compensation fund. I know, like, a lot of people over on the Democrat side, on the liberal side, they're all saying that this is a certainty, that they've already agreed to it. I read somewhere earlier that Mike Johnson and President Trump had gotten together and they both agreed that he's going to be dropping it. I haven't seen anything anywhere with regard to that, at least not yet. But perhaps by the time you're watching this, maybe they have already put out something. But as of 8:05 p.m. Eastern Time today, Monday, June 1st, they haven't put anything out, not just yet. But the Department of Justice, they wanted to make a mention of this. So the Department of Justice disagrees strongly with the decision on the anti-weaponization fund put forth by the United States District Court judge in the Eastern District of Virginia, wherein the court stated that under no circumstances may the Department of Justice proceed with the anti-weaponization fund recently established in order to make up for the tremendous abuse and harm and hate unfairly shown to so many people. This fund was open to anybody who was so weaponized, targeted, or persecuted, whether they were Democrat, Republican, conservative, independent, or otherwise. The department will abide by the court's ruling, as they have to. They're required by law to do just that. And I'm not sure if there's going to be any appeals process with that. I mean, there won't be if Trump decides to just let it go and just drop it all together. And then my next question would be, where does the money go then? I would assume it just goes directly to President Trump then. All right, RNC election integrity, fake news. Democrats are furious the president is securing mail-in ballots and stopping non-citizens from voting. Why? Because every election integrity measure makes it harder to cheat. I mean, that's what all the roads lead to. You know, what else could it be? So Chairman Grutter says voters deserve elections they can trust. And with this executive order, President Trump is restoring that confidence. It's from Newsweek. Major USPS change would impact millions of voters, what proposed rule says. And look, according to the RNC, at least, this is fake news. And of course, they're not going to tag the article. And notice how they framed the headline. Major USPS change would impact. So this could, it's not saying that it is happening, not saying that it will happen. It's just saying that, well, if this were to happen, this is what we think could be the fallout of this action. The U.S. Postal Service on Friday proposed a new rule that would require states to submit voter-level data for all mailed ballots in federal elections. The effort marks the first concrete step toward implementing President Trump's executive order tightening mail ballot procedures. An order a federal judge declined to block just 1 day earlier. The changes could determine who receives a ballot in the fall and significantly expand federal control over a process that has historically been run by the states. Well, look, man, this is what you get when you start playing games like this. You start blanket balloting the entire state all over the place. And, you know, when you're playing fast and loose with our election system, you know, that's when the federal government may step in and start taking more control over it because, yeah, I mean, it probably should be controlled by the states. It always has been controlled by the states. But, you know, if they play with fire too much, they're going to get burned. And let's see, the changes would determine who receives. Okay, so we got that. So the proposed rule would set for publication in the Federal Register next week, would require states to provide the USPS with the names and unique barcodes associated with every voter receiving a mail-in or absentee ballot. Why would that be a bad thing? It's just double checking to make sure that it's going to the proper place. The rule applies to general, special, and runoff federal elections, not primaries or ballots sent to military and overseas voters. USPS said the barcode requirement will help determine adherence to federal law and facilitate law enforcement efforts. shifting the agency from recommending ballot mail practices to mandating federal standards for how states prepare and track mailed ballots. The USPS would also be empowered to return outbound ballot mailings that do not meet the new specifications or not tied to state-submitted voter lists. I mean, why wouldn't they put tracking, like USPS tracking? They essentially give literally everything tracking now. I don't know, like your standard letter that you're mailing, which, I mean, who does that anymore? But everything else, every package you send, anything that you send through the post office comes with a tracking number. So why wouldn't our ballots? Just to make sure that they actually end up where they're supposed to be going. That way, me, someone who's voting, and I believe that my vote is extremely important and I want it to be cast, it would sure be nice if they attached a barcode, a tracking number, so I can follow it. If that is what they're talking about, I assume that's part of the process. So that way I will actually know that it went to where it was supposed to go and it didn't just get quote unquote lost in the mail like probably countless thousands did in 2020. The rule is the first major step toward carrying out Trump's March 31st executive order, which directed federal agencies to tighten mail ballot procedures and require USPS to deliver ballots only to voters on each state's approved list. On Thursday, U.S. District Court Judge Carl Nichols declined to block the order, saying plaintiffs could not show harm because the agencies had not yet acted. USPS proposal now changes that calculus, potentially giving challengers standing to sue. Oh, so they're just waiting for the USPS to make a move. So essentially, the instant that the USPS says, okay, it goes into effect in 3, 2, 1, and then like 2 seconds later, a federal judge just, no, you can't do it. A separate lawsuit filed by Democratic attorneys general is scheduled for a hearing Tuesday in Boston, and I'm sure it'll be struck down by the leftist judges. Republicans praise the move. Voters deserve elections they can trust. And with this executive order, President Trump is restoring that confidence. Republican National Committee Chairman Joe Grutter said in a statement the RNC fully supports his action to secure mail-in ballots and stop non-citizens from voting. I mean, look, like what real reason would Democrats have to put a stop to this? Other than them just simply wanting to cheat, make it much more difficult to track the ballots, make it much easier for ballots that might be aligned with conservatives to just somehow mysteriously go missing, for example. How Democrats responded. Democratic campaign committees issued a joint statement on Thursday before the USPS proposal was unveiled, condemning Trump's executive order and vowing to continue their legal fight. So are they going to take the emotional route? I don't know. Let's see. We are confident that we will prevail in the end when this illegal and completely unworkable executive order is fully adjudicated. Why is it unworkable to put barcodes on ballots? Like I said, every single freaking piece of mail gets issued a barcode, a tracking number, like everything. Leaders of the Democratic National Committee, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, and Democratic Governors Association said the court's decision does not change the long-standing principle that the executive branch cannot infringe on the rights of Americans to cast their ballots, including those who vote by mail, along with the authority of states to run their own elections. Trump is literally not doing that at all. Anybody who is allowed to vote can absolutely vote. He's not taking away anybody's ability to vote. They're just making it so that we know where the ballots are going and that they're being issued to the correct people. Why do Democrats have a problem with that if they aren't hell-bent on cheating? They added that Democrats will continue to fight this and multiple other cynical attempts by Republicans to rig the midterms. Dude, if anybody's rigging the midterms, it's y'all. Arguing that the order threatens access to ballots and state control of election administration. So anyway, voting right groups are alarmed, and it's a lengthy article. Of course, it's Newsweek, so it'll be linked. Moving on to Scott Brady. We will win the war on fraud. And he tagged in Vice President J.D. Vance that he replied with. Last week, Vice President Vance invited attorneys general from across the country to participate in a roundtable on combating fraud. The Trump administration's war on fraud continues. Looks like they just pieced together a compilation video, which we covered this last week.
Thanks to all of you for being here. Very gratified and proud of the fact that we have 15 different state AG offices represented here today who are focused on helping us in combating fraud.
It was an honor to meet with Vice President Vance to talk about opportunities we have to partner to address public corruption.
This was actual real conversation, real sharing of ideas between state attorneys general who right now are the principal prosecutors of welfare fraud in America.
We're going to work together, state and federal government, to try to combat fraud.
The answer to so much of the fraud that we have in the country and in these areas
is getting access to the information and working with our federal partners to connect the dots.
We're getting cooperation on investigations, we're getting cooperations on analytics, we're getting cooperations on prosecutions, and we're able to claw these taxpayer dollars back.
Because of the Vice President's leadership, you are seeing the most muscular, robust, aggressive, dedicated, determined, and speedy effort to shut down criminal fraud that has not only ever occurred in the history of this country, but in any developed nation.
When President Trump announced his task force 50 days ago, we immediately reached out to OIG, our Western District of Oklahoma Attorney General, and the FBI. And we launched Operation Sooner Shield 25 days ago, resulting in a dragnet arrest of 15 fraudsters, fraud providers in 4 different states.
We must restore deterrence by finding, prosecuting, and punishing fraudsters.
The fraud problem is national, and our state partnerships are critical to solving the fraud crisis in our country.
As we're all working together, we're making a very positive impact. Bringing information together, data mining.
This was a meaningful meeting. I really appreciate the White House convening this and look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you, President Trump, for having the guts to lead and to give us the resources and the partnership to put bad people behind bars.
There you go. Different state attorneys general showed up for the meeting last week. Not all of them, and I would be pretty shocked if any from blue states ended up attending the roundtable meeting, although they absolutely should. Why wouldn't they want to combat fraud and waste and abuse in their state? All right, FBI Director Kash Patel. President Trump's law enforcement team is wiping out criminal networks in America at levels never seen before. So we got some highlights from the FBI.
There's a war being fought for our neighborhoods, and the FBI is leading the charge. By backing local cops and launching massive joint task forces, they're leading an all-out assault on the thugs, tearing our communities apart. Working hand in hand, they've hunted down and locked up more than 45,000 violent criminals.
Damn.
Because of that relentless push, violent crime arrests are up 185%.
Hell yeah.
The national murder rate just hit its lowest level since 1937. Take a second and let that sink in.
That was
1937. It means your risk of being a victim's dropped at the fastest rate in modern history. Violent crime plunged 10% nationwide.
It's still
and
good.
the FBI didn't stop there. They went straight after the syndicates, completely wiping 2,450 street gangs off the map.
All right.
That 322% increase choked off their ability to terrorize your communities, so you and your family could walk the streets in peace. And the poison flooding our streets? 2,600 kilograms of deadly fentanyl were seized. A 56% increase, wiping more than 1 billion lethal doses completely off our streets. So many lives saved. We're trouncing the Biden administration's best years. People can argue all they want, but the numbers don't lie. With the FBI leading the charge, our streets are being reclaimed and our families are finally protected.
Well, yeah. There's your FBI. Kash Patel's FBI. All the numbers are looking very good. At least that's what they're reporting. From the DEA, New Orleans, the fight against fentanyl is in our neighborhoods. Watch DEA Zach Hoffer discuss the economic drivers of this trade and why protecting Arkansas takes a whole of society effort. Fentanyl free, hashtag. And it looks like they've got the full video there, but we'll take just a look at the highlight from ABC 7.
Top drug threat, with repeat offenders fueling the crisis with counterfeit pills.
It's so inexpensive to make the fentanyl that the profit margins are just huge. And so there's this lure for drug dealers to traffic primarily in fentanyl.
The DEA says counterfeit pill production is becoming more localized, with traffickers making fake pills inside Arkansas communities.
This is the primary form that we see illegal fentanyl now being distributed and manufactured.
In April alone, the DEA says an enforcement effort in Arkansas led to nearly 100 arrests in the seizure of more than 1,500 fentanyl pills.
1,500, making arrests. You know, every bit, a little bit goes a long way. Still combating the fentanyl crisis. I'm sure that we're not going to see it completely eradicated or eliminated anytime soon, but at least they're still fighting it. From the White House, President Trump on continuing talks with Iran. Talks are continuing at a rapid pace with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So just, not very much information at all, just reminding us that they're still continuing. And President Trump says, I had a very, here, let me just grab just the quote up here. I think, yeah, it's a lot easier to read. I had a very productive call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, and there will be no troops going to Beirut. I had a very good call with Hezbollah, and they agreed that all shooting will stop. President Donald J. Trump. So was that it? Any troops that are on their way have already been turned back, and that's troops going to Beirut. Likewise, through highly placed representatives, I had a very good call with Hezbollah, and they agreed that all the shooting will stop, that Israel will not attack them, and they will not attack Israel. Alrighty. That's good news. No shootings, no killings. Give peace a chance. And what else? From U.S. Central Command, the U.S. defends and disables threats in response to Iranian aggression. And this is out of Tampa. That's where the headquarters for CENTCOM is located. Conducted self-defense strikes on Iranian radar and command and control sites for drones in Garuk, Iran, and Qeshm Island this weekend. The measured and deliberate strikes occurred on Saturday and Sunday in response to aggressive Iranian actions that included the shoot down of a U.S. MQ-1 drone that was operating over international waters. U.S. fighter aircraft swiftly responded by eliminating Iranian air defenses, a ground control station, and 2 one-way attack drones that posed clear threats to ships transiting regional waters. No American service members were harmed. CENTCOM will continue to protect U.S. assets and interests in response to unwarranted Iranian aggression during the ongoing ceasefire. So that's some of the latest updates with Iran. Not a whole lot to report, just a little bit of drama over the weekend. And Chairman Joe Gruters sent this interview. Graham Platner, who is running as a Democrat in Maine for the Senate, his active profile on an app known for child P and kidnapping and abuse has been discovered. Apparently, he was a member on this app, which I think is Kick. Not to be confused with the streaming app, the video streaming app. This is like some like other social media app or whatever. So Navarro's, the GOP is going to dig up everything that they can. Is there something new you want to get ahead of? And Platner just says no. And this was 2 weeks ago,
but
apparently.
the GOP is going to dig up everything and more that they can.
Yeah.
Well, they've already dug up a lot
at some point.
Is there something new you want to get ahead of?
No, I mean, like I've lived my life.
Might as well say, please no.
I've been there
please
for the whole thing. And because of that,
he's got nothing to hide except Nazi tattoos.
I know what I've been through. I know what my behavior has been. I know all of it. And there's a reason that even after however many months that was, October, when they dropped the opposition research stuff on us, and the whole time there was always this there's more coming. I'm always like, I don't know what this more is going to be. And
these are all your social media posts, etc., which again we'll talk about in a minute.
But there was always this oh no, they're going to dig up everything in your life, and it's everything you've ever done. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get that, but I've been through my life, and I'm certainly an imperfect person, and I certainly went through my struggles, and which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Well, let's talk about it. That's what she's asking
you. For a fact that I've never been close to money. I've never been close to power. I've never been able. I've never I don't think anything I've ever done has been outside of the realm of what people do when they struggle, when they suffer, that kind of stuff.
Well, of course, that's probably why he's running. Money, power, running under the Democrat Party. That would be my best assumption. Let's go to the next one. In the same topic, Senate Republicans Lisa Marie Booth on Graham Platner's active, it's currently active, apparently, account on a known child exploitation app. 60% of Kick's 15 million monthly active subscribers between the ages of 13 and 24 years old. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation has labeled it a predator's paradise. Not to say that that's exactly what he's engaged in, although I don't think that he would be able to deny that it definitely looks bad.
I also want to point out that it's even more disturbing than that. He was apparently on this app called Kick, and 60% of Kick's 15 million monthly active subscribers between the ages of 13 and 24 years old. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation has labeled it a predator's paradise. So I do have questions about why you would be on a site like that. So you've got that. You've got the Nazi chest tattoo. You've got the sexting scandal with other women. He's made racist remarks. He made the remark about
that came out recently
that the veterans should have been killed. Right? It's on, and we're not even in a general election. So there's going to be so much more. So do Democrats care about character, or do they care about power?
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be some October surprise waiting for Graham Platner. Look, maybe they were able to access some of what he was doing on this app. Maybe they've got the proof, or they've got certain conversations. Maybe they even found some victims that they might surprise us with in the near future. I don't know. And we got this from Steve Hilton, so we're going to move over to California. A message to every Chad Bianco supporter. I respect your support for Chad, but there is now no possibility of 2 Republicans in the top 2. In fact, there's a real risk of 2 Democrats. At this point, that's what a vote for Chad could bring about. This is not personal. It's about saving California. Let's do that together.
So there's 2 days to go till the election, and I just want to say something directly to everybody who supports Chad Bianco, who might be thinking of voting for Chad or any other Republican, or in fact any other candidate on the ballot. There's a lot of candidates for governor. Here's where we are. It's a very, very tight race. 3 people competing for 2 spots in the general election. Myself, Javier Becerra, and Tom Steyer. Tom Steyer is catching up. There is absolutely no guarantee that we're going to get a Republican in the top 2. In fact, it's now looking more and more likely that we'll have 2 Democrats in the top 2. I know that many Republicans were holding on to the hope that we might have 2 Republicans in the top 2, myself and Chad, and then we're guaranteed change in California. But if that was ever possible, it's certainly not possible today. You just have to look at the math. This is not personal. It's not about me or Chad or our qualities or our record or anything like that. It's about the future of California. And if we don't get a Republican in the top 2, we have no chance for change. And that's going to hurt every Republican running, not just me, every Republican running for the state legislature, for Congress. Is going to hurt our chances of getting voter ID through. This is a very, very serious moment. So I'm asking each and every one of you, please, let's focus on what we all care about, including Chad, which is saving California. There's only one choice if we want to save our state, and that is to vote Steve Hilton and make sure everyone you know gets that message too. Thank you.
All right, well, it seems reasonable. I mean, he's the front runner for the Republicans in California for the governor's race, and I don't see why he wouldn't come to reason and just realize, well, like he's got a commanding lead over me. There's no way at this point that I'm going to catch up and pull up into first place on the Republican side, and he might just come to reason. But oh wait, what's this? So Sheriff Chad Bianco, he says it's clear that Steve Hilton supporters should unite and support me. While they're at it, Becerra, Steyer, Porter, Mahan, Thurmond, Valeragos supporters should vote for me too. So in other words, he's not backing down. He's saying, in fact, don't vote for Steve Hilton, vote for me instead. So he's obviously not going to bail out and pass all of his supporters on up to Steve Hilton. So it looks like that could end up being the more likely outcome, as Steve Hilton pointed out, that if he doesn't drop out, then it might just end up 2 Democrats that are going to be running for governor. But at the end of the day, it's California. I don't think we're going to be in any way surprised that that's going to end up happening regardless. It's kind of unfortunate. I mean, he does make a good point, although I don't know. I don't really know anything else about what's going on other than what I'm reading here. And let's move on to WWG1 WGA. Democrats are now claiming that President Trump is facing a massive cognitive decline. This was our president for the last 4 years who was actually facing a massive cognitive decline. Democrats said nothing. Remember this? Joe Biden. I'm not sure that he knows where he's at. Where's he looking? Who knows, man? Yeah, Kamala's all, feeling good, all buzzed up, just having her party time. Gunther Eagleman, Jill Biden is out hawking her new book, Rewriting History, like the Biden crime family always does. She just admitted that she pushed Joe to pardon Hunter on federal gun charges after Joe swore over and over that he wouldn't. But Trump might target him. Funny how that works. Hunter gets a full shield for gun crimes and tax evasion and influence peddling and a decade of sleaze, while everyday Americans rot in jail for the exact same offenses. Elitist much? And also, not to mention, like his crack cocaine habit, the cocaine that was found in the White House. that was just mysteriously there somehow. This wasn't mercy. It was protection. It was a protection racket from a DOJ that slow-walked the investigation until Daddy could sign the get-out-of-jail-free card. Gaslighting at its finest. Two-tier justice exposed again. Rules for thee, not for me. The Bidens think they're untouchable. America sees the corruption clear as day. So let's look at this.
About her husband's disastrous debate performance, but also his decision to pardon his son Hunter on federal tax and gun charges.
Joe said in the beginning, I won't pardon Hunter, I won't pardon Hunter. But then when Trump was elected, things changed, and we knew that he would target Hunter. I truly supported it. I wanted him to pardon Hunter at that point.
So Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett joins us now. Hey, Greg.
You mean he would have had to face the consequences of his actions?
Her rationale for the pardon for Hunter?
Oh, how dare they?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, you know. Look, she's out there hawking her new book that comes out tomorrow, trying to repair her tarnished image by rewriting history through deceit. You know, but rationalizing how she and her husband could not let her son go to jail despite his lawful convictions. I think that only exposes her sense of privilege, elitism. It's okay for other sons to go to jail, but not ours,
of course.
Because, you know, we're special. Look, Joe Biden always planned to pardon Hunter, and promising the opposite repeatedly was just a lot of pre-election garbage to get votes. But, you know, now Jill compounds the dishonesty by claiming no one has ever gone to jail for what her son did. That's a provable lie. Lots of people have gone to jail for the exact same gun charges, including in Delaware. And don't forget, you know, Hunter's pardon also covered his tax evasion guilty plea. And hundreds of people are convicted and sentenced each year for that. And it also shielded him from potential influence peddling and money laundering charges. He was under investigation. Again, plenty of people end up behind
Was that
bars
from the
for tax
Burisma
fraud
Holdings
and
era?
other things. So,
where he sat on the
you know,
board of an
Jill
energy
is
company that
just
he knew nothing about
gaslighting,
energy?
And even her former spokesman
In Ukraine, of all
calling her
places.
out, Brian, for bending the truth.
Very
Absolutely.
coincidental.
So a couple of things about Hunter Biden. He was prosecuted by his Justice Department. And remember what he, the president, and his spokesperson said repeatedly. Watch.
From a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there
I just said no.
Would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. So that was wrong.
And he pardoned him.
And we knew it then. I never saw a book get more pushback before it was released than Jill Biden's book. In the second.
All right, well, we get it. Yeah, she's peddling a book. She's coming out of the book tomorrow. I'm sure that everybody's just going to be clamoring to get it. Just cannot wait. Books are going to be flying off the shelves, setting the shelves on fire. And from Maze, here's 9 minutes of comedy. I'm not going to have enough time to play all this, but I figured we'd watch a few of them. Just like the last video, I'll repost it. And again, direct link below. You can check it out. The mainstream media claimed that that Biden promising to not pardon his son Hunter was proof that the DOJ was not weaponized against Trump, and also proof of Joe Biden's incredible character. Not too long after Biden pardoned Hunter.
Presidential promise to put the law before family.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Letting the world know that he will not wipe away the decision of 12 of his son's peers.
Was asked directly, and he has said he wouldn't pardon his son if he gets convicted.
Let's wait and see what happens if he loses.
Yeah, but he said it.
He's going to get pardoned by his dad. There's no question about that.
The president has ruled out pardoning his son.
Major commitment from the president, accepting the outcome of the trial and also pledging not to pardon his son.
So the challenge for him is really to continue to live up to his values when it was really personal, and he did that today.
It seems like a pretty normal, straightforward answer, but it takes new weight when we see what Trump is saying about the outcome of his trial, what we're hearing from other Republicans who say they don't accept the jury's verdict here in New York.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process, and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
Our current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, what you know, again, it's all about the contrast.
President Biden saying, I will respect whatever this jury decides, versus
right.
Donald Trump after he was convicted on 34 counts, saying the entire system is rigged against him.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty, and Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son, he would not commute his sentence. How stark is this difference? I mean, how can Republicans keep making this argument now that Joe Biden has really put it out there?
All right, well, I think we get the idea. Again, there's 9 minutes of this. It just goes on and on. We already know how this story ends, that he ended up pardoning Hunter, of course, because we all knew that he was going to anyway. Now, to be fair, if the same were to apply with President Trump, if one of his sons were found guilty for whatever, do you think that Trump would probably pardon one of his sons? Probably. I would say, you know, like what parent wouldn't at least give it serious consideration? But the point is that Joe Biden said repeatedly, over and over and over again, that no, there's no way I would do that. I wouldn't do that. I would let the law prevail. And of course, he pardoned him. All right, so Rob Schmidt, this community achieved equality long ago, but much like racism, this will never end. Of course not. And of course, I'm assuming that he's talking about, what was that, in 2015 when gay marriage was legalized, recognized by the Supreme Court. They won. It was over. But then, of course, you know, it can't just truly end because we've got all these nonprofits to think about, all this money that just keeps flowing in as we just continue fighting this fight. I think that they never thought in a million years that the Supreme Court would have actually made gay marriage legal, but of course they did, and they just had to keep finding something else to fight over. So anyway, so Curtis Hoke says, bizarre Disney-owned ABC's Good Morning America kicked off Pride Month with back-to-back segments, one of Deals and Steals featuring LGBTQI plus owned businesses, and the other celebrating same-sex salsa dancing. Okay. Just like the last video, we'll just give it a minute or two.
All right, we get not just music and dance, it's Pride, a feeling. Salsa. In 2023, Pradeep.
Without any judgment, that's the best feeling ever.
And yes, and we're joined now. We're here now with Vimal Pradeep. He is the founder and owner of Pride Salsa. And Vimal, thank you so much for being here with us. And how did it make you feel to grow this dance community?
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Personally, for me, it's about building home far away from home, which is India for me. Mm-hmm. And also dancing is a form of resistance and liberation. And especially as queer bodies dancing together,
a form of, like,
we all love it. It means a lot to us. Hopefully, it's the same for all the folks that's watching us. Come dance with us.
Come dance. Dance is a universal language, my friend.
Okay, well, that was on ABC News this morning. Look, I don't have a problem with that. If they want to salsa dance, let them salsa dance. You know, God willing. Why not? And I don't even really have any issue with this segment. I would imagine that probably a lot of conservative commentators or Republicans are probably dunking all over them. But, you know, whatever, dude. If they want same-sex salsa dancing, then, you know, more power to them. I don't have an issue with it. That was just one of the few Pride Month topics that I came across today. And also, of course, happy Pride Month from Catherine Clark, who is the whip for the Democrats. It just says, Pride is a celebration and a call to action. This month, we commemorate the strength and resilience of the LGBTQ plus community, blazing the trail toward freedom and dignity for all. Together, we will continue our fight for equality and to defeat the bigotry of those who want to drag us backwards. Which I don't know what the hell she's talking about. Maybe quote-unquote gender reassignment surgery for minors. Maybe that's what she's talking about. Hacking off children's genitalia because they've been convinced that they are just in the wrong body and we have to correct that. Maybe that's the backwards direction that she's talking about. I don't know. But anyway, so let's just move on to Kelly Loeffler. President Trump dug America's small businesses out of, out from under a $5 trillion mountain of red tape piled on by the Biden administration. He saved job creators from the largest tax hike in history. Well, that's the Democratic Party for you. The last time a Democrat president lowered taxes for the American people was in 1952, because Democrats, they don't want to lower taxes. They want to keep increasing taxes. He's delivering fair trade and making us a nation of builders again, President Trump. There has never been a better time to start or grow a small business in America.
Well, the ongoing federal relief is cutting taxes and cutting regulation. Look, Democrats layered on $5 trillion of regulation over the Biden administration. They voted to raise taxes on every hardworking American, on every farmer, on every builder in this country. And so this president is focused on bringing prices down for the long term. And that's what's going to happen as soon as this conflict is ended.
For the long term, bringing down prices. And look, it's not just the Iranian conflict. Look, I don't know why that Trump decided that it was a good idea to export our beef to Australia, for example, when we keep having beef prices increase. Read somewhere that over the last year, beef prices have gone up somewhere around 15% year over year. But Trump chalking it up as a W that we're exporting beef over to Australia, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. The same with exporting our oil to other countries when we're in the middle of a quote-unquote gas crisis, which, I mean, that's not even quote-unquote at this point. It's over $4.50 a gallon, last I checked. And that's kind of a crisis for a lot of people to have to pay that kind of price for gas. And of course, when gas goes up, everything ends up going up because the cost to ship all of our goods all over the country, it's going to go up because gas prices went up. So not too crazy about that. It would be nice if we maybe start not doing that and trying to keep all of our oil here so we can beef up the supply, and that way the prices may come down. But what the hell do I know? I'm no economist. I'm no oil guru. Maybe that's just too simple and it just doesn't work out that way. And from Secretary Doug Burgum, there is no scandal in cleaning up monuments and fountains in our nation's capital. And by the way, he's the Secretary of the Interior. The real scandal is letting them fall into disrepair in the first place. Thanks to the president, those days are over. We're making D.C. safe and beautiful for everyone. Let's check them out on CNN.
The real scandal is not about that we're fixing up monuments and making America's capital beautiful again. The scandal should be, how in the world did we let our capital fall into such a disrepair? How did we fall into such a spot where celebrating American patriotism became partisan?
Yeah, with all the global politicians and diplomats and representatives from all over the world come and visit D.C., you think that we would want, I don't know, everything to be working in D.C., everything to be functioning properly. There's dozens of water fountains that just went into complete disrepair and haven't worked for years and years. And it's about time they got them back up and running again. I mean, look, I'm sure it's not that cheap to maintain them, but they built them. Now that they're all built, I don't think it's too much to ask to keep maintaining them. And another one from Secretary Doug Burgum, looking forward to the opening of the Lincoln Memorial Undercroft. I didn't even know this even existed. I've been to the Lincoln Memorial. The only time I've ever been to Washington, D.C., I was only there for like 2 or 3 days, but I did manage to go by the Lincoln Memorial. That was the one place I wanted to go, and I got to see it above all other places. This exhibit reveals the previously hidden foundation of one of America's most iconic memorials and celebrates the story behind its construction. So this is, I'm assuming it's underground. It's underneath the Lincoln Memorial, which is kind of mind-boggling to me that this is even here. No idea that was even ever there. But yeah, there it is. And yeah, that's definitely underground. Or those stalactites, is that what they call that? Stalactites, maybe? And yeah, that's just kind of shocking to me that this could even happen, like with DC being in the middle of a swamp, or it was established on a swamp, that they would be able to have something under. Well, you know what am I saying? I mean, they've got an entire subway system in DC, and that's a deep subway system. Those escalators went way down to access the subways in DC. All right, so moving on to the VA. Secretary Doug Collins, he's got an update. We stopped talking about fixing VA's electronic health records and started doing it. 4 new sites went live this year and 9 more are on the way. This long overdue improvement means better care and better continuity for veterans.
The previous administration, previous secretary just basically gave up and said that we couldn't get it fixed, it wasn't getting right. We came in, President Trump's direction was to start helping veterans. Well, the way we do that is to get their records straight. So last year we put in a plan. I initiated it with both VA and with our providers to say, how can we get this thing done? Well, I'm pleased to report that about 6 weeks ago, in Michigan, we launched 4 sites that have worked absolutely flawless. And they are doing what we need them to do. That is going to be the standard bearer going forward. We got 9 more sites opening up in our hospitals. By next year, we're upwards of 20 to almost 30 next year. So what this does is allow records to be transferred easily. We can keep the records in our system, but also it makes more accuracy in the things that we need for continuity of care.
All right. Well, that sounds good to me. What are all records in the VA, like all paper-based? Like they don't have anything electronic up until recently? So maybe they've got this big initiative where they're scanning all of it into a system or something. But whatever. So regardless, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, especially if they're still paper-based, which is kind of crazy. And from Secretary Scott Turner with Housing and Urban Development, it was great to be in Iowa with Representative Zach Nunn to see public-private partnerships bringing new housing options to Americans in the heartland. The Trump administration is working to unleash the private sector to build and deliver affordable housing across the country.
Hey everyone, this is Secretary Turner. I'm here with my dear friend, Congressman Nunn, who is a congressman here in the great state of Iowa, a combat veteran. We're here with Habitat for Humanity looking at what public-private partnerships do to help housing affordability. There's been great testimonies of how families have now been able to afford to buy a home with the help of Habitat and local leaders here in Iowa. And under the Congressman's leadership, I'm so honored to be here. The President signed 2 new executive orders to combat and to attack housing affordability, bringing down barriers to build affordable housing, and also to increase the competition in the mortgage industry. And we just published our regulatory best practices.
Middle class can't afford a home, but at least the low class,
cities and
they're getting homes,
localities around the country recommendations of how they
the middle class has access to these programs.
To bring down the regulatory environment, to increase supply and bring the cost down for the American people to be able to afford a home in this great country.
Secretary Turner, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Look, here's the reality right now. You've been able to cut not only regulation in Congress, we're moving forward with legislation that hasn't been done in over 40 years. This means helping build new homes, keep homes already on the market with loans that help you repair a roof, replace a septic tank,
lower the
prices.
prices.
As our legislation that just passed with huge bipartisan support to make sure that rural housing becomes not only affordable, but it is more applicable for folks who want to live right here in places like Iowa, the heart of the heartland. And I will say this much, if a guy from Iowa and a guy from Illinois who has played there can work together on this, this is something the American people want. Thanks for everything you're doing, not only on the quarterbacking of this, but making sure that we have a better community, more affordable costs for Americans across the board.
The heartland, I thought the heartland was like Indiana and Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky. I thought that was like the heartland, and that Iowa is like the Great Plains. I don't know, maybe it is. What the hell do I know? But yeah, like access for the middle class. Look, whenever they say affordable housing or low-income housing, they're not talking about people who make like $50K a year or a combined household income of like $70, $75K a year, which they can't afford a house either. In order to afford the average priced house in America, you have to be making somewhere around $110,000 a year. And the average American household doesn't make anywhere near that. So, and that's why 85% of America is priced out of the housing market. And unfortunately, President Trump says that he has no intention on lowering the bottom line, the price of housing in America. He wants it to stay the same, if not continue to increase, which I think is insane, especially when Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alpha, they might even be paying attention to how crazy that it's gone in terms of the housing prices. And look, I mean, if this administration doesn't want to find a way to lower the bottom line, the cost of housing, it's not just the interest rates. It's all about the price at the end of the day. I don't even know. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not bored with snakes yet? I caught this timber rattler during a Colorado trip. I clicked on it too soon. A river trip with my dad in 1967. My cousin Maria Shriver is to my left. So there he is, catching a rattlesnake, which I shared last week on The Swamp. What was it, on Friday, I think, of Secretary Kennedy catching a rattlesnake not long ago. It was probably just a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And that was after he was over at Dr. Oz's residence and he caught 2 black racer snakes. And that went viral as well. So he's continuing the virality by sharing more and more images of him just handling snakes. So he's got a lot of guts, man. There's no way I'd go anywhere near a rattlesnake. But anyway, they got 37,000 likes, almost 700,000 views. So that went somewhat viral too. Secretary Brooke Rollins, thank you to the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin for answering the calls from farmers across America. Having a DEF derailment occur out in the field can set back weeks of work. I'm so grateful to have a partner at EPA who is working on behalf of our great American farmers. Farm security is national security. And from Lee Zeldin, a tractor shutting down during harvest because of a faulty diesel exhaust fluid system has long been a devastating reality for too many farmers across America, but is now becoming a problem of the past as a result of the Trump EPA actions this past year. Visited this weekend with the Oklahoma Farm Bureau and many of their amazing member farmers.
When a tractor goes down in the middle of harvest, it can be devastating and make the difference between making money that month or not. And when it's time for harvest, and on particular crops, they need their equipment to work, and they definitely don't need a federal regulation to prevent them from being able to do their job. Heeding that call through my travels across all 50 states last August at the Iowa State Fair with Secretary Rollins, Senator Joni Ernst, Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler, we announced a significant reversal to the diesel exhaust fluid derailments. We then started working with manufacturers individually to have them update their software, work with their customers, and start getting the equipment updated to be able to prevent these significant, quick, massive derailments. Then at the beginning of February, on February 2nd, we issued right to repair guidance, making it very clear that you can repair your own tractor and other non-farm equipment. You could do it yourself. You could go to someone you trust. You don't have to go to a certain authorized dealer that might be further away or cost more money. We then also issued a demand letter to 14 engine manufacturers that have 80% of the market to give us the information that they have on the DEF system failures. We've received information from all 14 manufacturers. Using that information, we are able to now go further. In the meantime, at the end of March at the White House on the South Lawn, President Trump announced new guidance issued that day to get rid of the requirement for diesel exhaust fluid sensors altogether. Right now, it's at Office of Management and Budget, going through an interagency process, the 2027 nitrous oxide proposal that EPA would like to propose, completely eliminating DEF derailments altogether permanently. There's other actions that EPA has been taking that hasn't been announced, but internally within the agency as it relates to our Office of Enforcement and Compliance, understanding President Trump's intent after he had pardoned Troy Lake in Wyoming, and hearing President Trump's calls, which include public's calls. So our desire is to go as far as we possibly can pursuant to the law.
Yeah, you know, the more the better. More deregulation, the better. You know, let farmers do what farmers do. Stop trying to get in the way of the federal government. So, sounds like good news. I'm not a farmer, but it sounds good. Sounds good to me. Anything that'll help them along. And from the FMC, so the FMC, that's maritime, I think. Federal Maritime Commission, the independent federal agency responsible for regulating the U.S. international ocean transportation system. You don't hear a whole lot from them. The FMC welcomes Commissioner Robert J. Harvey. And we've got just a brief article on him. Just mentioning that on Monday, June the 1st, Mr. Robert J. Harvey of Florida was sworn in as a commissioner of the Federal Maritime Commission. Commissioner Harvey was nominated by President Trump way back on September 3rd of last year to serve on the commission for a term expiring on June 30th of 2029. The United States Senate confirmed his nomination on May 18th, 2026, months and months later, and President Trump appointed him to the commission on May 28th. And it just goes into more information on the newly appointed commissioner. And of course, that'll be below. And from Steve Scalise, this week marks the beginning of hurricane season today, day one. So if you're in any of the coastline states, I'm sure you already know all about it. And that was on my list of things to do this weekend. I didn't get around to it, even though that should have been the first thing I got to. But I'll be getting to it, in the coming days. Just getting out all my hurricane stuff and just making sure everything's there. Not everything's expired. The batteries are still working. All the lights are still there. And, like all the good stuff that I got to do every year. Now is the time to learn evacuation routes. Assemble a disaster kit, locate a safe room in your home, and make a plan for your pets. Yep, got all that covered. except for the supplies. I got to make sure that we're on the up and up with that. Oh yeah, non-perishable food. I probably should top all that off. Probably dig through some of the pantry and make sure nothing in there is expired yet. Being prepared is the best thing that you can do to protect your family, and taking these steps can make a huge difference when faced with a disaster. And you can learn more at scalise.house.gov. He's got his own list of disaster or hurricane preparedness on his own website. So hurricane preparedness, and you can have a look at that. I'm sure that most people who are in hurricane-prone areas probably don't have to go through it. I'm sure you go through it every year. You just got to stay on top of it. Or maybe you just recently moved and you absolutely do need this list, in which case that'll be below. You can check it out. Sign up for emergency alerts, traffic, weather updates, assemble a disaster kit with battery-powered radio, flashlights, extra batteries, first aid kit, blankets, clothing, food, water, prescription medications, medical supplies, learn evacuation routes, gather personal documents, make copies, records, talk to your family, get a game plan, all that. Also, like just a couple of tips, like fill up your bathtub just in case if the entire area loses power. You know, if it's so catastrophic to the point where even water pumps are not even working and you're not getting water to your house, at least you got a bathtub full of water that you can at least flush your toilet. That's something that could be helpful. Or if you live in a flood-prone area and if you got everything that you can possibly fit into your vehicle and you're evacuating and there's just a couple of extra things that you want to take but you can't, you could always just lock it in your dishwasher, because dishwashers, they're waterproof. So anyway, let's go on to the last thing I got from Secretary Sean Duffy with transportation. Watch, the future of aviation is taking off. It was an honor to become the first U.S. Transportation Secretary to fly in an eVTOL. Never even heard of them. Now we're taking the future of flight to the next level with projects across 26 states that include the testing of urban air taxis, obviously for the elite, emergency medical flights, which, yeah, it could be for everybody. Regional Travel America will win the race for the next generation of aviation. And here is a video to show what he's talking about.
Pretty remarkable.
This is not the Jetsons. This is actual real life.
Wow.
I'm the Secretary of Transportation, and I'm going to take a historic flight into the future.
Dude, this is freaking amazing. Nice flying, man.
I'm at Beta Technologies. This American company is going to fundamentally change the way that people and products move. This is American innovation, American workers, American owners.
These are the chargers that we put all over the country. EIPP catalyzed all of this.
I love this, and I love what you guys are doing. It's the partnership of, again, regulators and innovators all working towards the same end goal.
People and products are going to move more efficiently, more cost effectively.
We burned $3 on that flight.
You ready to go?
Yeah, let's go. America, again, is leading the world.
Does that mean these are going to be cheap?
Innovation.
It's only going to cost $20 to take one of these?
Thank you for flying with us. It was great.
I mean, look, I somehow doubt it. It's probably still going to be quite expensive to use these things. But look, medical transportation, that could be promising. That could be a good thing, you know? But I guess in the meantime, I'm just leave it at that, and that'll do it for tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday. And I also post daily on X, which is where you can peek at some of the content for tomorrow's episode. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for watching. God bless the troops, and God bless America.